Mark and Sam had been dating for just over a year when they decided to take the next big step and move in together. Mark was optimistic, hopeful that the little things that had irked him about Sam would work themselves out with time and communication. She had a habit of being wasteful with money, buying things she didn't need and never using them, but he chalked it up to youthful impulse. Her apartment had always been a mess, clothes strewn across the floor, dishes piled up in the sink, but Mark had told himself it would get better once they were sharing a space. Love, after all, was about compromise, right? But when they moved into their new apartment, things didn't just stay the same, they got worse. Shortly after moving in, Sam suggested they combine their bank accounts. "If you really love me," she said sweetly, "we should trust each other with everything, including our money." Mark, wanting to prove his commitment, agreed. He thought they were building a life together, but within weeks, he regretted his decision. One weekend, while he stayed home to catch up on work, Sam went on a girls' trip with her friends. When she returned, Mark discovered that she had drained his savings account. Money he had been saving for 10 years for emergencies and future plans. Sam had blown it all in a single weekend. When he confronted her, trying to stay calm but visibly shaken, she waved him off. "Stop overreacting. It's just money. We'll make more," she said, and then walked away. But that wasn't the end of it. Sam refused to help with any of her housework, claiming her hands were too important because she worked as a clerk, typing all day. "I can't risk hurting my hands with cleaning," she said with a smirk, even though they couldn't afford to hire someone. As if refusing to help clean was not enough, she cared nothing for making any effort to reduce Mark's workload. Clothes were left where she dropped them, sometimes even at the front door as she came in and started to undress to quickly change so she can go out with friends. Dirty dishes sat on the coffee table for days, and each time Mark tried to talk to her about cleaning up, Sam would either dismiss him or burst into tears. "You're making me feel horrible about myself," she cried, guilt-tripping him into silence. Any attempt to address their deteriorating living situation was met with emotional manipulation. Every month, their financial situation worsened. Sam's reckless spending continued unchecked, and when Mark mentioned that they couldn't even afford rent because of it, she lashed out. "You're just lazy. If you were a real man, we wouldn't have this problem. Maybe you need to work harder. I deserve better than this." Her jabs at his salary left him deflated. Sometimes she compared him to her ex and said she made a mistake leaving her ex and maybe she should go back because he was more of a man than Mark. It didn't matter how hard Mark worked. Sam always found a way to make him feel small. When they argued, she would give him the silent treatment for days or even weeks, withholding affection until he apologized, regardless of who was in the wrong. He found himself apologizing just to keep the peace, saying he was wrong when he knew he wasn't. He was slowly suffocating in the relationship, a shadow of the man he once was. He stopped all his hobbies just to afford rent, and no longer hanged out with his friends because Sam did not approve of them. He even had to sell his car and ride the bus so they could afford a new car for her so that her friends did not look down on her when she goes out, which was almost every evening. 2 years passed and things had only deteriorated further. Sam spent freely, ignoring their overdrafts, while Mark found himself scrambling to make ends meet. Even though he got a second job to try and keep up, she berated him constantly, accusing him of not being good enough, of not earning enough. And every time he worked late, she accused him of having an affair. When she wasn't actively attacking him, she weaponized her silence, a cold, calculated punishment that left him feeling more alone than ever. She even withheld physical affection, using sex as a tool to manipulate him. One night, after a grueling shift that went into the early hours of the morning, Mark sat in his car, too weary to go home. He knew what awaited him. Another round of baseless accusations. Another round of silent treatment. Another night of sleeping on the couch just to avoid her. He had become like a stranger in his own life. Driving aimlessly through town, he noticed a small, dimly lit bar still open. With nowhere else to go, he pulled in, hoping a drink might dull the ache inside. The bar was nearly empty, and the bartender, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a calm demeanor, served him a drink. Sensing Mark's despair, the bartender asked, "Tough night?" Mark, feeling like he had nothing left to lose, spilled his story. The constant arguments, the financial ruin, the emotional roller coaster of living with Sam. "I just can't talk to her," he said, staring into his drink. "No matter what I say, she twists it around. Everything is my fault. I'm drowning, and I don't even know how it got this bad." Mark sighed, then continued. "If I could just get her to listen to me and understand that I'm doing my best. If she would just make an effort to spend less and help out more at home." The bartender nodded, listening intently. "Sounds like you're dealing with someone who's using passive-aggressive tactics," he said after a moment. "People like that don't confront things head-on. They manipulate, use guilt and shame, and avoid responsibility. They find ways to make you feel like the bad guy while never changing their own behavior. She isn't going to listen to your facts or suggestions because she doesn't want to change. She's living her life. Acting emotional when you try to bring something up is just a tactic so that she can keep doing what she is doing." Mark's eyes widened as the bartender's words sank in. Suddenly, everything clicked. Sam's constant refusal to address their problems, her way of making him feel guilty for even bringing things up, the silent treatment, the emotional manipulation. It was all passive-aggressive behavior. She wasn't just avoiding responsibility. She was using these tactics to control him, to keep him off balance and submissive. "It's a form of emotional abuse," the bartender continued. "They make you feel like you have a problem, when really it is them. They don't want to change. So they use these tactics to keep the upper hand." The bartender poured Mark another drink, then continued. "The thing with passive-aggressive behavior is that it does not look like abuse. But the silent treatment, stonewalling, shaming and guilt-tripping are abuse. And breaking down your self-esteem and confidence by attacking your character is one of the main forms of emotional abuse." Mark sat there, stunned, as the weight of the last 2 years fell into place. He realized that Sam wasn't going to change. The endless cycle of manipulation, the constant attacks on his self-worth, the draining of his finances. It had all been a way for her to avoid responsibility while keeping him trapped. For the first time in a long while, Mark felt a sense of clarity. He wasn't crazy, and he wasn't overreacting. He had been manipulated, controlled, and emotionally worn down by someone who knew exactly what she was doing. And for the first time in years, he knew what he had to do. Learn more about narcissism by watching the video suggested to you right now.